Before we get into the heart of the lesson, I want to tell you a little bit about last week. Sandy and I went up to Beaver's Bend, and we took off a couple of days, and we enjoyed that. So we spent a couple of days at Beaver's Bend, and then we were coming home, and kind of looking for something else to do. We'd done a couple of things. I had a lot of fun, and I picked up on a statement on one of the web pages, and said there was something in Hugo that I thought I might want to see. And so I didn't tell Sandy what it was, but I said, let's go home this way and stop at Hugo. I want to show you something. And we got over there, and what I wanted to go see was the cemetery where the Showman's Rest Cemetery is located, and it's in Hugo, and it's where a lot of circus entertainers are buried. There's a big long story about Hugo being a circus town, but that's a whole other thing to talk about. So there's this section in the cemetery that is called Showman's Rest, and I took a few pictures, brought them off the web of some of the people that are buried there. So here's Okie, that's his nickname, of course. He was a circus animal trainer, and there's an elephant there, so he may have been elephant trainer. And here's one of Popcorn. And I wonder what he was, I just think the headstones were interesting. They were descriptive. It told us more about them than just having their dates of birth and death and perhaps where they were from. And then here's the Webbers. They did theirs in artistic style. They were a high wire act. And so we see their act there depicted on their tombstone. And it tells us more about their life. And I just thought that was kind of neat. And let's see, here's Bonnie Jean Warner. She was a chimp trainer, and that's her chimp that's photographed there with her. And I just, it just told a little bit more about her, a little bit more about the people that are buried there in that section of the cemetery. And I thought it was very interesting. Here's John Carroll. It says he was an elephant trainer, and he also, down at the bottom, I think he helped start a trust fund for circus entertainers that died without any estate. And then here is Barbara Woodcock. This headstone is 6 feet tall. It's huge. She's standing on top of her elephant, Anna May. So we get a pretty detailed picture here of what her life was about as a circus entertainer. And I just thought it was interesting, and I wanted to share that with you a little bit, just to tell you that that's there. I'm used to seeing graves, and we all are, that you go to a cemetery and it's got John Doe, a birthday and a death day, and that's pretty much it. And sometimes it may have their spouse with them. Sometimes it may say they were married on a certain day. Sometimes it may say they were from somewhere, but I don't see too many that are real descriptive like this. Now, the military, many times it will usually have the branch of service and the rank they were, and that's normally about it. But the tombstones normally don't tell a whole lot. I thought these were pretty interesting, and it might serve a purpose for us someday. I don't know. Anyway, moving on to preparing to serve or being prepared to serve. Let's get into the heart of the thing. In the beginning, God created man, and he created him with the responsibility to serve him and to work for him. I mean, God didn't create man, Adam and Eve, and put them in the garden and say, here, you got a fat and happy life now, just lay down and enjoy it, did he? What did he tell them to do? He told them to, you're in the garden, you need to work it and keep it. That's Genesis 2:15. Now, I want you to understand this. Some would say that we have to work in our life because of sin, but that's not true. God created Adam and Eve, put them in the garden, and told them to tend the garden, to keep it, to work it. That was a sin-free environment, and that was his instruction. So work has always been a part of God's plan. When asked what was the greatest commandment, Jesus said in Matthew 22:37, you shall love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and all thy mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. Tell me about love. Is love active or passive? Active. Love is an active word. And not only is it active, it's proactive, isn't it? I mean, love is proactive. You have babies, you have kids, you love them, you proactively do things for them. You don't wait until they break their arm to put a gate up over the back porch, you know. You put the back gate up and be proactive to try to make sure they don't do that. So love is very proactive, and Jesus said you need to love your God. And in doing so, you need to do things for him. That's what's inferred. And your mankind is the second commandment. You should love them as yourself. You should be proactive in the love you have for mankind, and you should do things for them. Now, that's God's principle, is that we are created to do something. We're created to work in a sin-free environment. We're created to work in our life today. We are created to do things, and the greatest commandments being love, that's what we need to center our work around. Now, in the kingdom, this attitude of God hasn't changed at all. God expects us to work using the abilities that he gave us. Let's look at Matthew 25 and start in verse 14. We all know the parable of the talents, and I'm going to read this through quickly, and then we'll come back and talk about part of it. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, another 2, and to another 1, each according to his ability. Then he went his way. And when they received him, etc., etc., I'm going to skip on down to verse 21. When he came back, he had an accounting. He wanted to have an accounting with them. And he said, I've made you 5 talents. He said, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I'll set you over much. Enter the joy of the master. And the 2-talent man came forward and said the same thing. He said, I have made you 2 more talents. He said, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter the joy of the master. And then here came the last servant that had 1 talent given to him. What did he say? He tells him, I knew you were a hard taskmaster, and I was afraid of you. I was afraid, and I hid it in the ground. Here, you could have it back. And he gave it back to him. So what did the master do? He said in verse 26 or 28, take the talent from him, give it to the servant that's got the 10 talents, and cast the worthless servant into outer darkness. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, we have studied this parable, told you don't tell them how many times it's been preached on. We've studied it in classes and everything, but this is the reality of where we live today. This is us. This is us. We are servants, and we have different abilities. We have different talents. Notice he says he gave them according to their abilities, verse 15. Then he went away. Our first question. He went away, expecting what? Them to work. He gave them a talent according to their abilities, and he said, I'm leaving, expecting them to work and to do what? Profit, deliver better goods, to make more, to do what he would expect them to do based on the talents that they had. Now, why? If you have an employee and you give him a job, you expect him to do a job. Why do you expect him to do a good job, Jimmy? It's what he gets paid for. Does he become a better employee? Does he become a better person? Does he become part of the group? Does he become part of the company? He works, he produces, he does well. That's what he expected him to do. Let me ask you this, kind of along the same train of thought. Why didn't he just give all of the talent to the 10-talent guy, to the 5-talent man? Why didn't he give the whole job to the best guy? Okay, so you're saying maybe the best guy, but he didn't really know if he was qualified to handle all of it. Okay, that's one aspect of it. I think that's valid. How's he going to develop the other guys if he gives everything to the best guy? What do we do here on Wednesday Devos and home talent lectureships and things like that? Have we got guys that are great speakers that, can do it all the time and let them do it, but we bring the guys in and try to encourage them and to grow them into the kingdom, grow them into the positions they need to be in? So I think that's another aspect of why he would spread out the work to be done. Let's skip down to verse 25. The one talent guy. You're a hard taskmaster. I was afraid. So I didn't do anything. Did he lose what the master had given him? No. Did he destroy it? No. Did he tear it up? No. Did he make it not worth anything for anybody else? No. He just didn't do anything. I was afraid. He hid it. Was he proactive? The one talent guy? Was he proactive in doing anything? No. Not at all. So there's the parable of the talents that we've studied and studied and studied. We all have different talents. I want you to note in that parable that those that served well were rewarded. Apparently their wealth was increased. They were praised by their master. They were rewarded. Now, we don't know all the details of all of that, but they were. And certainly that's what's indicated and that's what's told. And in effect, when we use our talents for God, we're going to be rewarded too. You ever think about that? We use our talents for God, we're going to be rewarded. How are we going to be rewarded? Two ways. Anybody? Immediately and later. Okay, so immediately would be how? We go visiting people, encourage them to come and invite them to come to church or whatever, go visit the sick. How are we rewarded now? Job well done. Who feels better? Do you feel good when you go visit somebody? I don't want to go to the nursing home. I just don't want to go. I don't want to go see that guy. I don't want to go see Miss whoever because they're sick. I just don't want to go. But you go, and what happens? You come out and you go, man, I'm glad I went. I feel so much better. And guess what? It helped them too. So it helps you, it helps them. So we do have rewards. We have an immediate reward. And what's the eternal reward? God's going to bless us in our efforts. Okay? As they were rewarded, so will we be rewarded. I want you to notice something else about this. He called his servants together. He didn't have any 0 talent servants. There are none. There are no 0 ability people. There's not any 0 people out there. His least was worthy of something. His least was worthy of an effort, a confidence to try to do something. And we need to remember that. He was afraid. Well, man, that's understandable. He was afraid. Sometimes we're all afraid. Sometimes we're all reluctant to do things in the kingdom for a variety of reasons. One might be what? Anything. Anybody got your input? Somebody calls on you to do something, you don't want to do it because maybe what? You might make a mistake. Valid. Something else? I'm just not qualified. The air conditioner breaks. The switch didn't make it work. I'm done. Okay, I'm just not qualified to do that. So that's a valid thing. We're unsure. Maybe it's a new experience. We want you to speak on the hometown lectureship. Man, I've never spoken on a lecture. I've never done that in my life. Well, guess what? Most of us haven't at one time or another. Taught a class. Most of us haven't at one time or another. Here's an excuse that's used. Why do you want me to do that? Gary Hunter's a lot better at it than I am. Let him do it. Right? We get a lot of that. Sometimes we're reluctant to serve, and that's certainly understandable. We have to understand, though, that if God gives us an opportunity, we can probably rise to the occasion to make an effort to do it. If he gives us that opportunity, Moses did not want to go to Pharaoh. He did not want to go. Moses gave God excuse after excuse. Who am I? I can't do any miracles. Yes, you can. Who am I? How are they going to know that I talked to God? Here, you prove it. I'm not a nobody. I can't talk good. I pronounce words wrong. Make a difference. I made your mouth. I'll give you the voice. And besides, I'm going to send your spokesman with you. Finally, what does God do? He gets mad at him. And he says, I don't care what you're saying. You are going. Now, look, you go. Period. He was reluctant, just as we are. Many times for many reasons. Let's see where we're at. No, I don't think so. I've never considered that, but just thinking about it instantly, I would say that it just magnifies the point that God was the one doing everything, and he was just his vessel. He didn't have any abilities in and of himself. Everything that Moses did, God was the one actually doing it. Moses did not have that. Okay, now the gifts that we have, the jobs that we have, the opportunities that we have, how you want to frame that, God gave us, what are they? Well, let's look in the kingdom here and let's see real quick. 1 Corinthians 12 and 27 and 8. Now you are the body of Christ and individual members of it, and God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing, of helping, of administrating, and various kinds of tongues. So here we have several works that happen in the church, happen in the kingdom. They're specifically pointed out as to what they are, and it says that some of you have a gift for that, and some of you don't. But everybody has a gift. Remember, there's no zero ability people. I like that one in this translation, gifts of helping. I like to be a helper. I really do. I can help Jimmy Mahan on something, or I can help Jimmy Finney, and I don't have to make any decisions. All I got to do is, here, hand me that, pick that up for me. Let's go here, open the door. Man, I'm a great helper. Guess what? Anybody can be a helper. Anybody can be a helper. We don't have to be the guy driving the cart. We just got to be able to help somebody drive the cart. Okay, and then use our gifts willingly, often, and with enthusiasm. Well, Jim, where in the world do you get that? Romans 12:4 and following. Read it. For as in one body we have many members, and the members do not have all the same function. So we, though many, are one body in Christ, and individually members one of another, having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us. Let us use them. In prophecy, proportion to our faith. In service, in our serving. The one who teaches in his teaching. The one who exhorts in his exhortation. The one who contributes in generosity. And the one who leads with zeal. And the one who does acts of mercy with cheerfulness. Now, what do you get from these verses? You get from these verses that he expects us to use our gifts and to use them willingly, to use them enthusiastically, to use them all the time, don't you? How's a leader going to lead with zeal and not be zealous about it? You see the picture? How's a person extending mercy going to do it and be cheerful and it not be just a part of their life? A teacher teaches, right? Got teachers in the crowd. Well, if you're a teacher, you just teach. I mean, that's what you do. That's what you do. Verse 4 says function. That shows what? Action. That shows work. That shows proactive action on your part. Gifts that differ. We are all different. I can't be another Jimmy Finney. And why would anybody want to? I love Jimmy Finney. But we can't be somebody else. We can't be. You know, as good, Toby's a great preacher, but, you know, he's got preachers that he holds in high esteem. He can't be them. He has to be Toby. We can't be somebody else. We have to be us. What else? We just have to be who we are. Let us use them. Did I underline that on that handout? I did. Let us use our gifts. Folks, we have them. He gave them to us. Let us use them. What else is there? The list is not comprehensive, but it's representative of everything. How do I serve God? Use my God-given. How much time do I have? What'd you say? 20 till? Huh? Okay. How do I serve God? Use my God-given abilities in every way on a daily basis. You know, I'm well blessed in many, many ways. I don't have to look very far. And I'm just so thankful for what God's given me, and I feel bad sometimes when I complain about something, because I know intellectually I can lay it down and know how blessed I am, and the same can be said for all of y'all. I mean, that's just a fact. You know, with our TV today, you can see stuff and you go, man, I am so glad I'm not involved in that, or I'm not there, or whatever. But anyway, we're blessed with our abilities of what we can do. And we need to recognize that. And as we carry on our life, when we see things that are not right, what we need to do? We see things that are not right. What we need to do? Fix them. If you can. Do something about it. James 4:17. Whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it is what? Sin. That's pretty plain. That's pretty easy. That's pretty simple to understand. I mean, it really is. Hard to do sometimes. Hard to do sometimes. Luke 12:47 kind of reiterates the same concept. And that servant who knew his master's will, but did not get ready or act according to his will receive a severe beating. The servant that knew what his master wanted, but he didn't do it, he's going to receive a severe beating. Everyone to whom much was given, much will be required. I don't like that verse. I don't like that verse. And from him to whom much was entrusted, they will demand the more. We have been given much. There's no doubt. Physically, we've been given much. We live in a great country. We've been so blessed. Look around. Look at us. We live well. We're healthy. You know, we live better than 98% of the rest of the world combined. We're physically blessed. Our families are blessed. We got good families. We're not separated. You know, I mean, we're not being in a war-torn country that's got problems there. And we're blessed in the church. Amen. I've got the closest friends I've got in the world are right here. That's just a fact. You know, the people I love to be around are right here. Blessed in the church. On the earth, be blessed in the church in heaven. Well, how do I improve my abilities? Do I have a need to improve my abilities? God gave me abilities. Should I be trying to improve them? I got a head, yes. Got one over there. God expects us to use our abilities to the fullest at all times. How do we develop and train our abilities for work in the kingdom? Well, study, practice, seize opportunities, broaden our horizons, do those kind of things. Ecclesiastes 9:10 says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. For there is no work or no thought or wisdom in the grave to which you are going. Do it now. And whatever your hand finds to do, Do it with all your might. So Jimmy hires a guy and he trains him to be a machinist, and he trains him how to do the most intricate machining of anything he has to do. And he comes to work, and all Jimmy expects him to do is just go over there and do the rough out. Is that right, Jimmy? No. God gave us an ability. He expects us to use it to the fullest we can, to the best we can. I'm guilty of not doing that. I'm the first one. I'm guilty of not doing that. Colossians 3:23 says the same thing. Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. Whatever you do, work heartily. You're serving the Lord. Got to give 100%, even if you don't like to do it. Even if you don't like to go to the nursing homes and visit, which I don't. Even if you don't like to. I don't think this is on the next slide, so I'll say it here. I heard a guy say one time, repetition produces skill. Add to that comprehensive knowledge. Add to that self-assessment. And you will wind up with mastery in whatever avenue that is. Repetition produces skill, add knowledge, add self-assessment to improve yourself, and you will end up being a master. How does a master carpenter wind up being a master carpenter? Repetition, study, knowledge, trying to be better. How does a machinist be the best machinist? Same way. Over and over. We should master our gifts, master our service to God. Let's see what we got. Okay, remember, we're working here on earth. God remembers our work for the kingdom and our service to mankind and him. Hebrews 6:11, for God is not unjust so as to overlook your work and the love that you have shown for his name in serving the saints, as you still do. Let's read that again. For God is not unjust so as to overlook your work and the love that you have shown for his name in serving the saints, as you still do. God knows what we're doing. He knows who's serving one another. He knows who's ministering to one another. He knows who's helping. He knows who's teaching. He knows what the work is that we are doing on earth for the saints. He remembers it. And he desires that each one of us continue that in steadfastness until the end. Now, who do you remember that did work in the church in the past, in your life, certain elders or teachers? There's a lot of them I can think of, but, Fred, L.H., Andy, Clella D. Kelly, some of the old-timers that I remember from this congregation. Now, if God remembers my work, men will probably remember it too. And so with that, I thought, well, at the end of our life, what would our headstone possibly maybe be able to look like? So Steve Bookout, elder in the Lord's church. Pretty descriptive. Pretty good. Kind of tells us about Steve Bookout. Toby Sechting, gospel preacher. Says a lot. Says a lot. Does Toby own that title? No. Other men are gospel preachers. Does Toby own that title in that he is the best gospel preacher? No. Does Toby own that title in that he's doing his best as a gospel preacher? Yeah. Okay. Need to own what you are. Let's see what's next. Gary Hunter, a Christian cowboy. I like that. It's descriptive. Tells us who Gary is. What am I? What would my label be? Am I a disciple of Jesus Christ? I certainly am. Is God going to remember me that way? Are men going to remember me that way? Am I a Bible class teacher? I have taught Bible classes. I don't know that I would qualify as a Bible class teacher. I think that's a Hugo McCord or somebody, you know, that teaches at the college level. But anyway, so I've done some of that. Am I a Bible student? Yes. Am I the best Bible student? No. Am I a Christian? I am. Turn it around. If you were going to stick a name on top of that, a Christian that you know that's an encourager, who would that be? A teacher, a servant, a giver. Who would be merciful? Who would you qualify as a helper or a preacher or an elder? Fill that one in. That's the last slide. I hope it's been beneficial thoughts for you tonight. Nothing new. Absolutely nothing new. But we need to think about who we are, what our abilities are, and to work on them. Serve God with our abilities. That's all we can do. Can't serve for somebody else.